We're back with some more examples to help you practice your verb choices. And specifically, we're looking at verbs that are commonly confused. To take your grammar to the next level, you really want to master these common, we call collocations. So verbs going with a noun or noun phrase. So let's start with that first one there, number 10. The new project management system is... Tell me, is it A, B, C, or D, a difference in how tasks are organized? Now, if you watch part 1, we learned that we want to look at what comes after the blank, as that often will tell us or will indicate to us which verb likely goes with it. So this is tricky, this first one. You might think making or you might think having a difference. And the correct answer here is making a difference. So she made a difference when she completed her tasks. What's really tricky about this is other words that are similar to difference. So for example, an impact, effect, not all of them take make. So that's where this idea of getting familiar with specifically the word difference, which verb goes with it. So the correct answer here is A. All right, number 11 there. Always A, B, C, or D, your best to address client concerns professionally. Have, take, do, or make. Tricky here. A common difficulty is between C and D, do or make. In this case, do is what we need. Always do your best to address the client concerns professionally. And do your best, you might hear that as a phrase used to encourage people. If you're competing in something, just try your best, do your best. Those are common expressions there. All right, so let's look down at number 12. So what do we think for this one? If we don't address these delays, they could, A, B, C, or D, a problem for the client. Tricky one here is often A and C get confused. So becoming a problem or getting a problem, or making a problem even for D. The correct answer here is A, become a problem. And the reason for that is there is a guiding principle for become, which is nice to help us. And that is if something starts as one thing and then it changes to another, usually become is a good fit. So for example, this issue or this item is not a problem now, but as it's saying, it could be a problem. So that transition from not a problem to a problem is usually represented with become. So keep an eye out. We'll see there's another example of this one where something starts in one state and it changes, and that often gives us a clue that become is the best option. 13, he's something difficulty explaining the concept clearly. A, B, C, or D? Correct answer here is B, had difficulty. And this one, again, is quite a common thing that we hear. He had difficulty finishing the project. He had difficulty understanding the concept. In this case, he had difficulty explaining the concept. So that unit, had and difficulty, commonly goes together. And there's other expressions that use had in that similar way, but in this case, we're seeing it just with that word, difficulty. Number 14, she struggled to A, B, C, or D approval from her supervisor for the project extension. So a common confusion here is between C and D. Is it take approval or is it get approval? And the correct answer here is D, to get approval. The reason for that, there is a bit of a guide for this one, is when you're obtaining something, so you are receiving it from someone, that's usually a good clue to use get. So getting approval for the project. getting an extension for your essay or something like that. But again, this idea that it is received often from, and if we're looking at prepositions, we want to pay attention to those as well, from somebody else often. Good. Let's go down to number 15 here. It's something clear that the team needed more time to complete the project. A, B, C, or D. So this one, if you remember what we experienced with let's go back here, number 12, this is similar. So the correct answer is B, became clear. The reason for that is pretty much the same guide as 12. Something wasn't clear beforehand, and then it transitioned, and now it's clear. So it became clear for some reason as a result of something that the team needed more time to complete the project. So think of it often with these states of clear, unclear. And in that number 12, something is a problem, it is a problem or isn't a problem. So that transition that's implied, that often triggers the use of that word became in that case. Very good. All right. Number 16, could you, A, B, C, or D, me a favor and review this report before the meeting? This one, correct answer is A, do me a favor. Now, often we go back to the rules of do and make, and sometimes they do apply. So usually do is seen as more for actions, so that could possibly guide us in this case. Rather than make me a favor, you're not actually creating something. But we do have to be very careful. As we said before, often our rules there don't really work for, especially as we get to abstract nouns that aren't things you can touch and actually feel, but are kind of concepts or ideas as well. So just to be cautious with that. Number 17, the policy changes will, A, B, C, or D, an effect on how we handle client complaints. This one is tricky because of what I said previously, and I'll give you the answer and then talk about it here. Correct answer is have. Will have an effect, and then preposition used is on. Do pay attention. Again, prepositions typically do stay consistent with the noun that they are with. So an effect on something. What we saw at the very beginning there, making a difference. Notice that one takes make. However, we don't say make an effect. We say have an effect on something. And this one's tricky. There's not really a rule for this. There's just sort of different nouns that take one verb over the other. So do note those ones. Have an impact, have an effect, make a difference. There is some variation in there and so forth. Finally, number 18, over time, the reporting process, A, B, C, or D, easier as the team grew more experienced. This one's tricky, and I'm gonna give you two options for this and talk about the subtle differences there. Over time, the reporting process got easier or became easier. So this is an example where both are technically acceptable, but there is a slight difference there. So if we look back to what we said earlier with something becoming clearer or something becoming a problem, the same logic applies here. The process became easier. So it wasn't easy to start and that transitioned. Occasionally, got can work for that. It got easier to do this. I will say though, watch out for got. It sounds quite informal, and it's usually not recommended in any sort of workplace or professional context there. So I usually recommend use became if you're trying to phrase it in this more polished way. Occasionally, you will hear substitutions when it's a less formal setting, but for the most part, became is the best choice. And the guiding principle is sort of what we saw before with those other examples of the transition of states to something else. Overall, if you're not sure, usually became is the best choice, and so forth. So with that, that is some more examples of commonly confused verbs that are decided based on the noun or noun phrase that they go with. And there are lots of these examples in English, and I recommend, if you're looking to advance your grammar level, start paying more attention to these, specifically the ones where you encounter them and you're not sure which one to choose. Those are the ones to go investigate, to search for, and to understand, okay, it is commonly this verb that goes with that noun, and so forth. So with that, that wraps up part 2 of our advanced grammar with verb choices. If you have any comments, leave them down below. If you have any questions for clarification or even just examples that you struggle with. And if you liked something, let me know through a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel for more videos on professional communication and advancing your current English level.